Okay, this is our day 3. Today we would learn about Nest providers, modules, and middleware. So let's see how these three actually works. The providers are would contain the complex logics, right? You can see that that could be like services, repositories, or factories, helpers. I mean, anything can be treated as providers. And their main job is to take the responsibility from the controller and then perform some actions. Of course, we would see with an example, but for now, let's see what are the other things that providers can do. So right here, you can see that on the previous chapter, we had this cats controller, and we saw that on day 2. And also we used the service, right? But let's dive deeper into how we can use service to kind of delegate our work from the cats controller to the cat service. Okay, so let's get back to our VS Code and let's see how we can create a service for cats. And you can see the command is nestg service and then the service name. So I'm going to copy that, and G stands for generate, by the way. Let me go back here, and I would open up my terminal, make sure I am on the proper node version. Okay, so I'm going to paste that and call cats. Okay, so you can see that it created a file, cat service.specification. So this is for the unit test, and you can see this is the cats service. Also, you can see the app module updated as well. If I open up the sidebar, you can see right here on the cats folder, we have 2 files. This is our service, and this is the test file. For now, we would ignore this one, but later we would revisit and see how we can write unit tests to verify our service is actually working as expected. And also you can see that the app module updated. So if I open up the app module, and you can see that on the providers array we have another entry, which is the cat service. And of course we have to register. So this is our app module, and we are using this cat service right here. So let's deeper into it, and you can see that right now it doesn't have anything. But one important thing to notice is that this decorator, so this injectable decorator, that means we can inject this service anywhere and use its functionalities. Okay, so let's get back right here. So let's copy this and paste right here. I'm going to import, and just to make sure that you are importing that from the cat interface. But for now we don't have cat interface, so I'm going to create one right here. Okay, so on the cats I'm going to create a folder, interface, and then the cat interface. So just create a new file, cat.interface.ts. okay, and I believe this is the interface. Okay, so this is our cat interface. Now let's import that from the cat interface. Okay, so now we have a typing for our cats. So on the create method, you can see that we are just pushing whatever the value is, and find all, we are just returning all the items from the array. So it's just a simple, but of course for you in real world experience, you would have a database connection, and probably you would add to the database, and of course you would fetch all the information from the database as well. But for now, this is just a simple thing for us. So now let's get back to the cats controller, I would see cats controller. Okay, so this is our cats controller. And what we can do, we can actually register or use that get service. And the way we would do it, kind of like this way. Okay, so let me just copy that. Let me import that from get service. So right here you can see this constructor, and we are actually injecting into the controller. See, I can actually improve that, like private read only. So basically we would use the proper methods from the get service, so we wouldn't do anything other than that. So let's see how we can do this. Now you can see this method return all. So from here I can actually return this dot get service dot find all, because we have that method, right? Do not forget to change the type, or maybe you can just completely remove the type, and the TypeScript is smart enough to figure that out by itself. So let me just save it. And I'm not going to do anything with the other ones. I only interested on the create ones. I actually created, yeah, this one. This is not mandatory, by the way. I'm just doing it for you know, the visual appearance. They are sitting side by side, so it's easier for me to kind of explain. So right here you can see that I have this status code. I do not have to add status code in this case, but of course you can do that. But for me, I think the default create status code is 201, which is fine for me. And you can see that it has this create cat DTO, and we are just console logging. But let me just remove, and I'm going to return this dot cat service dot create and create cat DTO. So now we do not have any. So you can see that this is this has this any type, and of course we can do create cat DTO and make sure that create cat DTO is important right here. And now we have a proper typecast for the data type object, and we are passing that to the create method. Okay, so I think this is nicely done. Let's run the application and see in action. I'm going to do npm run start dev, and you can see that there is no error. Let me get back to my insomnia. Okay, so I'm going to reuse my my previous day 2's because we already tested all these the previous day. So let's test the first one, which is find all. Okay, so find all, that means we are getting all the cats. Let's go back to here so you can see the example cats. Make sure this is a get request. I'm going to click send, and you can see right here that it is returning empty array. That makes sense, right? Empty array, that makes sense, right? Because on the cat service we do not have any items right here. So let's create one, and the way we would create it's by calling, and that endpoint would be slash cats with the post method. So let's create this one. I'm going to change this to post, and this is fine. But now I need the body, right? And with the JSON, and let me just pass the input. So I think I have the data on my other endpoint, so let me just copy paste. So now I can see this. I need name, age, and breed. So let's pass the name, age, let's 2 years, and breed. Okay, so let's send it. You can see that the status code is 201. That means it's successfully created. Let's get back to here, and I'm going to just send that, and you can see right here we have one cat. Okay, so let's recap what we did. We actually created a cat service, and on the cat service we have the complex logic, creating the cat, finding all the cat. Probably we would create on a database, we would fetch all the information from the database. So all these complex logics would sit right here. Okay, and on the controller we are injecting that on the constructor, you can see. And the reason we are doing this, or we have the option to do it, because of this decorator. It's an injectable class. Okay, so that's why we can do it. And now all we have to do, just this dot cat service. So in this way we can access all the methods inside of the cat service. So for finding all the cats, we are calling the find all, and to create a cat, we are calling the create method. Let's quickly go through the other concepts that providers offers. So for example, we already saw the dependency injection, right? So you can actually inject a service inside of your controller, what we saw right here. We can see that on the constructor we injected the cat service. But this injectable class, you can actually inject that pretty much anywhere. You can do that on other services, modules, middlewares, and pretty much everywhere. Of course, we would learn all of these later while we cover the modules and middlewares section. Okay. So for now, just skip forward, and here you can see that scopes. So providers typically have a lifetime. Okay. So that means it has like a time span. Providers are initiated during the application starting time. That means it would stay there for as long as the application is running. But some other are like request based, request scoped. They are only tied to that request. So when that request is done, and then the provider would destroy it or something like that. So we would learn more about this on the injection scopes chapter. So for now, let's skip forward. And of course we can have custom providers, optional providers, and we can mark that with this decorator, optional. So if we have a provider and we want to make it optional, so if we provide that, then it would work. If we don't, then it wouldn't show us any error. So in that case, we can mark that injectable service as optional. That's pretty neat. And do not worry about these for now. So this is actually using a different kind of notation. We would learn more about this on the custom providers chapter. Also, we have this property based injection. This is exactly what it showed right here. It's not like a traditional class based approach that we saw earlier. This is a little bit different one, and that and it is called property based injection. We are injecting with some kind of like a key, and then you can see the rest of the implementation. So we can actually use this inject decorator to use that. For now, also we would skip it, and let's focus on these provider registration for now. Okay, so provider registration we already registered because when we ran the command, What was our command? Our command was like nest generate service cats. So when we ran this command, it automatically registered that on the app module. You can see on the app module we have this providers array, and this was automatically updated by the Nest CLI. But this is how we can register a provider. Right here you can see the controllers. All the controllers would be registered right here, and the providers would be on the providers array. This is the module, by the way. So you can see that, and this is exactly the example that the documentation is showing us. And if we see our folder structure right now for the cats, so we have this cats folder. If we go back to here, so you can see that we have this cats folder, and inside of it we have a DTO for creating the cat. We have interface to properly type the cat model. You can say that, and we have these cats controller and also this cats service. But this module, you can't say that we don't have module for now, but this feature, let's say, and its corresponding controller and service, they should be registered where the application module. So you can see that for now we are registering that to the controllers and the providers. So this is how the folder structure is right now. Of course, we would improve that a little bit. We would introduce modules. So by using the module, we can actually clean up our code a little bit further, which we would do later today. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty much it. This is all we need to understand providers as of right now, and let's move to the modules. So modules, a module is a class, and we have a special type of decorator for that. You can see the module decorator, and an application can have different modules, and those modules can be based on features. A certain feature can have multiple modules, or a module can have multiple feature modules, and so on. You can see like a decent diagram. It's like a kind of like a tree view, but for us, we can check our code, what we did so far, and you can see that the main entry point is our main.ts, and inside the main.ts you can see the app is created and with the app module. So inside of the app module we have the imports, we have the controllers and the providers, all of these. So by using the module we can actually remove some redundancy. So let's see an action. And the module, what you can do, we can actually run a command. So you can see right here, nest generate module cats. So let's create that one, and nest generate, or I can just paste. So you can see that it created a cats module and also updated the app module. So let's visit the app module first, and you can see the changes. The changes is like you can see the cats module, it's imported from the cats module, and inside of this imports array. So basically we are importing the cats module on the app module so that we have the cats feature, right? So let's go inside of the cats module. For now it's just empty, but this like every module is kind of similar in fashion. You can see it has this module decorator and a class. So what I'm going to do, we can actually move these controllers. You can see the cats controller. We can actually copy this too, go back to here and paste right here. Okay, so we do not have these app controller, but we would import the cats controller and cats service. So now you can see that the cats module is importing its own controllers and the providers. And now what I can do, I can actually remove that cats controller from here, and also remove the imports. And now you can see that it is much more cleaner, and you can see much more reusable. So we are importing the users module and cats module, but of course this app control and app service is specific to the app, so we cannot just move there somewhere. But I think we can just delete this because we are not using that right now. But let's not focus on those two. So now you can see that the cats module is kind of like reused. So let's test whether this is working or not. Let's get back to the Insomnia. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call these /cats. If I hit send, you can see that I am getting all the cats as of right now. I do not have any, but if I make this post with some payload, I can see that it's a 201 is created. So let's make it get and click send. You can see that now I have one cat. Pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, let's get back to the VS Code and just make sure there is no error. So everything is working as expected. So instead of importing the controllers one by one and the providers one by one, we are segmenting them to module, and we are importing the module directly so that we can have all the controllers providers of that specific module. This is a pretty handy way to kind of organize code. Okay, so the module decorator takes a single object with properties that describe the module. For example, a module can have providers. You already saw we have a providers array, and the controllers, all the controllers would be there, and imports, so the list of imported modules. So the other modules that would be imported right here, we already saw we are using users module and cats module on the imports, and also we have this exports. We can actually export something from here as well. For example, let's say we're exporting the app service for other modules. We can do that. I'm going to remove this for now. So let's talk about the feature modules. So some feature modules is kind of like the default that we did. So we actually created this cats module. If I go inside the cats module, you can see that we have the cats module. And if I open up the folder structure, you can see inside of this cats folder, I have this cats module. So we are calling this as feature. So like cats is a feature, and also users is another feature. So these are actually feature module. And of course, we already saw that we can use the command NestJS module and the module name. And of course, we have to import that on the app module. Otherwise, our application wouldn't know that there is a cats module, right? So we have to import that. And now our folder structure is much more makes sense, right? You can see the top level, it has this app module, and inside of the cats folder there is cats module, which is imported right here. So if we have like 4, 5, 6 or even 10 feature modules, all of them would be imported on the app module. Or maybe not all of them, like it depends, but mostly, yeah, we would import them on the app module. Okay, so let's talk about shared modules. Okay, so the modules are actually singletons by default. Okay, so I would explain what actually singletons means. For now, let's see what are the modules that we have on our application. So if I get back to my VS Code, I'm going to just close all the windows, and you can see right here we have two feature modules, one for cats, one for users. Okay, so let's say I want to use the users module inside of the cats. Let's get back to the cat service. Okay, and now here what I want to do, I want to inject the user service. So this one, you can see that I have some user, and I want to kind of reuse them inside of cat. So maybe I want to know which user actually bought the cat, or maybe the owner of the cat, something like that. So what I can do, since the user service is injectable, right here you can see that, I can inject that into my cat service. The way I would do it, constructor, okay, and then private read only users service, make sure you import that from user service. So now I have these user service injected into my cat service. I can call the methods inside of it, right? So let's do this something like that. So what I want to do, let me just copy paste this one and I would explain. So right here you can see that when we register a cat, or maybe create a cat, how we call it, probably we'd get the authenticated user. Okay, as of right now we do not have authentication, so let's assume that our user with the ID 1 would be the authenticated user for now. So this dot user service, which is this one, and it has the find one method, right? You can see here find one, and it's expecting an ID. So we are passing one because we want the user with the ID 1. Okay, and you can see right here we are also getting the user ID, but the user, so the find one is actually you can see it can return a user or a string. Okay, so inside of this find one method, you can see that we are actually returning the user, and if the user is not found, we are returning a string. So what I can do, instead of this, I can actually done this one. Okay, so what I did, I'm actually just looking for the user and then returning that one if the ID matches with the user that I'm trying to find. If there is no user, then it would just return undefined. And if you hover over that find one method, you can see that the output would be create user DTO or undefined. Okay, so let's get back here, and now you can see that my user is kind of like create user DTO, but I can access the user ID. So when I would push into the cats, I would just destructure the cats information and append the user ID there as well. But there is an issue. It's showing that user ID does not exist on in type cat. Makes sense, because we do not have the user ID right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to user ID, which is a number. So assuming user ID is a number for now, but of course the user ID would be like UUID. It could be string, but for us it's just a number. Let's get back to here, and you can see that the issue resolved. So now I can add the user sorry, at the cat on the cat's array, which is fine. But I also have to make sure that on the controller, cat's controller, there is no typing mismatch issue. And you can see that there is one issue. So it's saying create cat DTO is not assignable to parameter of type cat. User ID is missing in type create cat DTO. So we have to match the type, right? So if I go inside that create cat DTO, what I can do, I can actually pass user ID to number, right? So if I do that, you can see the issue resolved. So now I can pass the necessary information to the cat service from the controller to create a cat with the user ID. So let's see how we can test this. Let's get back to the Insomnia. I would create a cat, make sure that I am on post. So cat's in point, and I have this information. And of course, now I need user ID. So user ID with 1%. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to just click send. And you can see that there is an error. Let's get back to VS Code. What happened? So it's saying Nest can't resolve the dependency cat service. Please make sure that the user service has that kind of information. And you can see this, there are some potential solutions the Nest offering for us. But the main problem is, you can see right here the argument user service. So we have to make sure that the user service is available on the cat's context, right? So we are injecting that, but are we actually registering, or how can we do this? Like, so to resolve the issue, what we have to do, we have to go inside of the cat's module. So right here you can see that we are providing the cat service but not user service. So let's provide that. Make sure you import that from the user service. So now we are providing the user service right here, so that our cat service, you can see cat service can have access to the user service. So just make sure that there is no error. So as of right now, you can see that there is no error. Let's get back to the Insomnia, and now this time I'm going to hit send, and you can see that now the issue is no longer there. It's 201 successful, and I just created a cat. Let's get all the cats. Okay, and you can see that I have one cat. Pretty perfect, right? But there is one issue. The issue is modules are singletons by default. So that means the singleton means it would create one time, and then if you access that module, it would just give you, okay, you know what, I already created it, I have on my hand, you can take it. If it doesn't, then it would create again. But most of the time, singletons would only create for the first time, or like only initiate for the first time, and then it wouldn't. So let's see with an example. Okay, so inside of the user service, you can see that I have these two entries, but I want to add another entry. Okay, let's go back to Insomnia. So I have these users, and I'm going to create one user. You can see that I have this information. Let's get all the users first. So if I click send, you can see right here I have two users. and these two users are coming from the hard-coded value that we have on the users service. Okay, uh, so let me create another user. Okay, if I click hit send and adds a new user for this information. So let's get all users, and now I have another users right here, but the problem is I do not have the ID which I need. So let's modify the code a little bit to have the ID. So you can see the create method right here. This is how we are pushing the data to the users array, but I want to modify this a little bit, something like this. Okay, you can see right here, so user, just make sure that I import it from entities. Okay, we have the users entity, right? As of right now, we do not have any information, but I can actually, you know what, I can add some informations there, like ID, which is number, name or full name, not sure. Oh, it's full name. So full name, string, and email string. Okay, so now I can actually update that to user. Okay, I think this is much more defined. And here what I did, I actually just get the length of the users array. So right now you can see the length is 2 because I have 2 items. Then 2 plus 1, so that means the ID would be 3, and then whatever we are sending to the user, right? So the next ID would be 3. So when the next ID would be 3, let's say something like this, then the length would be 3, right? That means 3 plus 1, the ID would be 4. So the next item here would be the ID with 4, right? And so on. So we are actually kind of mimicking the ID in this way. I know this is not the best way to do it, but we are just demonstrating. So I think for now, let's go with this approach. So we are adding the ID and then pushing to the users array and returning that user. So let me get back to the create user now. Let's make sure we get all the users. So we reran we updated the code, and the code actually kind of like incrementally updated our application. So we don't have any, we have the the default data. That's why it's showing exactly the same thing. Now I'm going to add this. So now you can see that I have ID with the 3, and if I get all the users, now I have proper data. Okay, so I registered one user right here, and I want to add cat for that user. So what I can do, let me get back to the example, and in this time just make sure that the ID is 3, right? So I'm going to update the user with the ID 3, and okay, so like have any cat data and send. You can see that it's a 201, it's created. And now I'm going to but the problem is the user ID is 1, but I'm sending 3, so I think there's something wrong. Let's get back to there inside of the cat service. So yeah, I'm actually hard coding that right here. So what I can do on the cats controller, create cat DTO, so we are passing the user ID. I can actually access that user ID right here. So it would be like cat.userID, and I can just remove that. So now I have the proper user, and then I'm assigning that to the proper user ID. Okay. Of course, we have to do all over again, because you can see that the application reran, so we destroyed our local data. Let me create another user for, you can see that ID is 3, and let's verify. Okay, there is one user. Let's get back to the example. You can see the user ID with the 3. Let's send it. Oh, sorry, I'm actually on the get, so I'm getting all the cats. Now let's change that to post with the data. So you can see that there is an issue. The server has encountered a situation it doesn't know how to handle. So this is pretty much like the 500 error. So that means our server is not working as expected. So let's get back. And if we go to the terminal, you can see that cannot read properties of undefined. So I believe this one, so the user, there is no data for the user. So let me just console log that. Okay. And of course we have to do that all over again. Let me just quickly do this. So I created one user, and now I'm going to create right here. You can see that I'm still getting the error, which is fine. But right now you can see that the authenticated user is actually undefined. So that means this user is not there. Why is that? So let's try to understand the issue. So here I can see that I have the user with ID 3, right? But when I'm trying to create a cat data, I do not have the user information. And the reason is, you can see the users service, you can see right here, we are including a copy right here. On the cats module, you can see that we are providing the user service like this way. So that means this user service is a new service. This is not the exact service that the user has on the users module, right? So you can see that. So this service is different from this service, which is actually registered on the cats module. So here you can see that we have this users module and the cats module. So on the users module we have the user service, and on the cats module we have the cat service. But the problem is, you can see right here, this user service is totally different from this user service that we are using on the cats. It is it created an instance. So this is the instance, and this instance, let's say this instance is actually has 1, and this instance is actually has 2, because we provided on the providers. So we are not reusing the module. Okay, so this user service has that array. You can see the users array, which has total 3 items, right? 3 items. But here you can see that it still have 0 items. We created on this users module, but this user's information is still empty. They are not synced because this is a different instance. And to resolve that, what we have to do, we have to actually reuse that user's module to the cats module somehow. Okay, and that's exactly we can do that on NestJS. So instead of this user service, so I'm going to just remove that. You can import the whole users module, right? So now I imported the users module, so the users controller, user service, and everything would be available on the cat service, right? So let's see if that works. And you can see that it's still showing an error like the cat service. I'm not getting that. Okay, so let's go to the cat service, and this user service is not available. Why? Because there is another thing we have to take care of, which is on the users module we have to export the user service. So we are exporting the user service to make it available for the other modules. So you are actually making it public for the other. Let's get back to the cats module now. You can see that the users module is imported, and if we go to the terminal, you can see that our application now doesn't have any error. So what we are doing, we are importing the entire users module so that the users module is shared, and we are using that module, so every data, initialization, and everything would be available right here. And let's get back to the Insomnia. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get all the users. You can see that we don't have, we have only the 2 static hard-coded item. So I'm going to create one user. Let's verify that the user is created. You can see that I have a new entry. And now if I get all the cats, it doesn't matter, the body doesn't matter, forget. So you can see that I do not have any cat. But if I convert that to post, and now I want to register a cat with the user ID 3, that means that the last added user. If I click send, you can see that this time it is showing 201, so that means it's successfully created. So let's verify. Let's get all the cats, and you can see that I have a new cat with the user ID 3. Awesome. So what we did, so let's recap. So basically we reused the users module inside of the cats module. Why we did that? Because on the cat service we needed the users service, because we wanted to have the user data inside of the cat, and that's why we injected the user service into the cat service. But the problem is, on the users module, the user service were not exposed publicly, right? So we added that into the exports array. So we exported the user service, and now the other module, you can see the cats module, this is importing it, and now we have the access. So this is how, you know, the share and everything is working under the hood. We already covered the module re-exporting, so we can export other module or other services or anything if we want, and of course we can inject the modules, inject the service into the modules, right? You can see that we are on the cats module. We can actually inject right here if we want to. So on the constructor we can do that. So see, on the constructor we can also inject that, but this can cause like this circular dependency thing, and it is not a good practice to do that. So the way we did is actually kind of the industry standard way to do it. So if we need the entire module, we can import that, or if we need a specific service, we can provide right here. I want to discuss a little bit about the global modules. So you can see that there is a special decorator like at global. So by using that, we can make a module global. So if we go back to our VS Code, you can see that the users module, probably users module would be reused on multiple feature modules, right? Right here on the cats module, we can see the users module. So what I can do, I can go to the users module and make it like global. Okay. This makes the module global so that it can be used across the application, and we don't have to import that. So I'm going to save it. Let me go back to the cats module, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to comment this out. So that means I'm not importing it. And if I save it, let me run the application. So npm run start dev. So if I run the application, you can see that it's not giving us any error. So it still works. That's because the users module is a global module. But if I remove this one, so if I remove this one and save, and here you can see that we have the same error. You can see the user service is not available on the cats module. So in this way, we can actually make a module global without needing it to import to other modules. So I'm going to revert the changes back to where it was, because I think it's a good practice to import the module without making it globally, because that could arise some confusions later in the future when you are working with the team with multiple members. So I think you just need to import whenever you need it. I think this is the best solution. We have another concept, which is a dynamic module. I'm not going to discuss this in this chapter. I think we would learn this when we would visit the fundamentals. For now, I'm going to skip it. And I think this is pretty much it. This is all we need to learn about modules for NestJS. Okay, so I'm going to go through the middleware. The middleware, it's like a middleman, which would act kind of like a broker between the client side and the server side. And the main responsibilities of middleware is to modify the HTTP request or response, or maybe some other configurations based on the requirement. Okay, and you can see that on the middleware there is this next special next method, and also there is this request and response object. And since we're using the Express, because NestJS is using Express under the hood, and of course there is Fastify as well. So middleware, basically we are mentioning the Express middleware. Okay, and what are the functions that middleware can perform? Is basically executing any code, make changes to the request and response. Of course, in the request response lifecycle, call the next middleware, and of course modify the request response, or probably pass some more context into the next request or something like that. The way we would create a middleware with an injectable class and this nest middleware interface. So we would see with an example. For example, here you can see that the logger middleware. So maybe I think we can actually this one into the VS Code. So let's get back to there. So what I want here is I want to create a middleware on this source directory. So the way I would do this, let me just kill the server. I think there is a command. I don't know, maybe the command is not mentioned right here, but I can definitely use a command to create a middleware quickly. For example, if you're not sure, you can of course run nest, which is the nest CLI help. Okay, and here you can see this middleware. We can actually create a middleware using the AMI, or mi is kind of like the short form of middleware. We can actually create a middleware like this. So let's see. Nest G stands for generate. Nest generate mi middleware, and the middleware name is logger. And you can see that it created a file, logger middleware.ts, and also a spec file, logger middleware.spec.ts. So this is basically where we would write unit tests to make sure this logger works as expected. For now, I'm not going to worry about the unit test for now. Let's focus on this middleware. Okay, so I have this middleware. What I can do here is a little bit improvement. So first of all, here you can see that there is any. So instead of any, what I can do, I can actually import the request response and next function from the express, and I can replace the any with the correct typing. So now my middleware is properly typed. Here, what I can do, I can actually console log some of the informations. For example, console.log request rec.method. So I want to know more about the method that I'm using while requesting, and also probably the path, okay, the route path. I can also console log the response res dot, I don't know, the status code, I think this one. So if I save it, now I think I can run the application. Npm run start diff. You can see that there is no error. So this is how I can actually generate a middleware through the Nest CLI and make sure the class is injectable. And you can see that it implements a special kind of interface, which is Nest interface. And Nest interface is imported from NestJS Common. It has this use function, and inside of this use function, you can see that there are 3 arguments. The first one is the request, and the second one is the response, and third one is the next function. So calling next means just proceed with the default or whatever that is happening on the request response lifecycle. But before that, we actually kind of console logged for now, but we can add any kind of calculations or modifications, whatever we need right here. Maybe we can call some other third-party services as well. It's up to you. And another important thing is you can see that the next function, request, and response, these 3 are actually imported from Express because NestJS is using Express under the hood, so we can actually typecast. Okay, so this is how we define the middleware. But this is not enough. We have to use that, right? So to use that middleware, you can see that we can apply middleware on the app module here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy this. I'm going to go back to the app module. Okay, so inside of this, I have this configure kind of method, and make sure it implements the Nest module, and Nest module is imported from NestJS Common. Okay, so there is this configure, and it has this consumer. So I'm going to import that from NestJS Common as well. You can see this. And the consumer, what it's doing, it's actually consuming. But before that, it's applying the middleware. Okay, the logger middleware that we created, so I'm going to import that. So this is the middleware we just created a little bit earlier, and I'm applying that. For some reason it's showing some issues, so you can see that I'm hitting save, but it's not automatically formatting, so that's the issue. So let's fix it, right? Because this is really annoying, to be honest. So the way we can actually fix it by, I don't know, going to ask the Copilot. I can do that manually, but that would take a little bit time. But let me see what I can ask. Make sure that I am using the agent mode. I'm using Cloud Sonnet 4. So the auto formatting is not working on save. Let's see. So it searched the prettier.rc, and you can see that we have this prettier.rc configuration file. It also searched the package.json. It searched settings.json, but I believe we do not have settings.json, or maybe we have. Oh, this is my user settings.json. So you can see that it actually created a VS Code kind of configurations. So you can see that the editor format on save is true. It's using the default prettier, which is default formatter, which is prettier, and ESLint, TypeScript, JavaScript, JSON. So all of them are actually using prettier as their default formatter. Okay, I believe this is done, so I'm going to keep it. So let's see if that works, right? So now I'm going to save it, and you can see that it automatically formatted. That's perfect. Okay, so we get rid of that annoying issue. So now I think I can actually run the application. So you can see that it's still running. There is no issue. But this time we are actually consuming or applying a middleware. But here you can see that this is really, really important, because we are actually applying the middleware for the cats route. So I can actually do this. This means just apply the middleware everywhere. Okay, so let's try with this one first. I'm going to save, go back to my Insomnia. So since I added like users, I can actually get all the users, right? Let me just do that, and you can see my two hard-coded users. But if I make it cat specific, and now this middleware is only for the cat. So what I can do to verify that, so let me just go to the middleware. So I have this console log, right? I believe the console log would be printed right here. So let me just go back to the Insomnia, just hit send, and you can see that nothing actually printed because my routes are specific to cat. But if I add something like this, so it would work for everything. So if I click send, and you can see that this is the output. Okay, but if I want to restrict that only for cats, I can do this. Okay, you can see that there is. So if I hit, and there is no print because it wouldn't work for the users. But if I go to the cats and click send, I don't have any cats, but here you can see that the middleware just ran because the middleware is applicable for the routes cats. It's pretty much like all the routes of cats. Okay, But what we can do, this for routes is actually, you can see this spread operator. That means it can take any number of arguments, to be honest. So I can actually do users and I don't know, something else. Doesn't matter, I can do this. Okay, but for now I do not have those. But I think this is fine. So this is how we can actually apply a middleware through the module. So I think we can actually inject something into the middleware as well. So let's see with an example. So what I want to do, I want to inject the user service that we have. To do this, what I can do, I can go inside this logger middleware, and in the logger middleware, since this is a class, I can actually use a constructor, right? Constructor, and inside of the constructor I can use private read only users service, which is user service. Make sure you import that from user service. So now my user service is injected. I can actually do some stuff like, I don't know, printing that. And of course we don't have the get users. We have find all. So let's see. And of course, this is of course you wouldn't do in the real world application. You would perform some things, but we are just making sure that this user service is accessible through dependency injection inside of a middleware. So let's see that. So I can see there is no error, but make sure that I am applying the middleware, and my middleware is applicable for the cats routes. So let's get back to the Insomnia, and this is my cats. You can see I can hit send. There is no error. So let's get back to the, here you can see that the user service. So it printed the request method and path. The method is get and path is just slash, and the response status code is indeed 200 that we can see from here. And you can see the user service. This user service is coming from this find all method that we have, which is kind of like the users, all the users, and we have the users right here. You can see 2 hard-coded users. That's exactly printed right here. So that means we can actually inject on the middleware as well. So it supports dependency injection. Let's get back to here. We can actually use wildcards to restrict routes or allow routes. Example you can see right here. So the routes ABCD slash anything with these combinations. If we can actually take a look right here on the app module, here I'm actually specifying the routes. This middleware is applicable for the cats, all the cats in point, like get, post, update, pretty much anything. But I can actually add wildcards if I want to, and I can actually specify something like this, probably cats slash any. So you can see that cat slash and then anything related to it. But there is another convention that if I need to restrict that for a specific type of method, I can specify right here with this path and method kind of way. So what I can do, we can just use path, should be this one, and method, and you can see that the method, so this is the request method type, and the request method right here, you can see that. So I think I can use the request method, make sure it is imported from the NestJS common. And request method have different types of method. So all means I can allow the routes for all the methods, but make sure the path is kind of like that. I can only specify delete, get, head option, patch, put, all these kind of things. So let's do that for the get. Okay, so I'm not gonna do this. So let's do that. So I have these middleware. This middleware is only applicable for the cats in the method get. So if I get back to my Insomnia, make sure I am on the post. So I'm actually making a post request to the cats endpoint. So let me do that. And you can see that there is an error, but it's fine. But we can see that there is no middleware specific output. Okay. But if I change this to get and hit send, and now you can see that I have this output, which is happening from the middleware. So you can see my request and response. So that means the middleware is only running for the get method on the cat's endpoints. Okay, so I think this is pretty neat way to kind of restrict or allow, but of course make sure that it also supports wildcard. So you can see that ABCD asterisk means ABCD 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, or anything pretty much. And there is another thing, like you can see this ABCD and then this wildcard means you have to have pass this route / something. You have to pass that, otherwise it would throw like not found or something like that. But if you want to make this portion optional, like I'm going to pass that, it should work. If I don't, it wouldn't raise any warning or issue or error. So in that case, wrap this inside this brace. So that means if you pass ABCD, it's going to work. If you pass ABCD / anything, it would work as well. It wouldn't throw any issue. That's because this became optional. And we already saw the consumer. And the middleware consumer is basically, you can see that the parameter of this configure method, and we the consumer is applying the middleware for routes, some routes. And interesting thing is you can see you can actually import a controller as well, and you can pass the controller. So that's pretty neat. I think this is like a much more definitive way to define, because the way I did here is pretty easy that I forget the S, or maybe there is a spelling mistake or something like, I don't know, CAS. But yeah, I mean, if I do that in middleware way, something like this, let's do that in the apply, but make sure that the controller is like 4 routes, something like this. So I cannot have this way. Instead I have to do consumer dot apply middleware for routes cats controller. Okay, so I can do that as well. If I do this, you can see that it still works. There is no error. But in this way, this middleware is applicable for all the routes of this controller. And that means we have pretty much all the endpoints you can see right here. All of them would use this middleware. Okay, so of course there is like this apply method, and this apply method is actually is capable of taking multiple arguments. So let's say we have multiple middleware. Okay, something like, I don't know, middleware, like another middleware. Okay, and middleware auth. I'm not sure, but if you have like multiple middleware, you can define that here as well. So you can see that apply takes multiple parameters with this destructor notation. So you can actually pass multiple middleware if you want to. Okay, since I have only one, I'm going to use one. Okay, so I think we can also exclude routes if we include it this way. We can specify paths and the method, but specifying this like multiple times and on different routes, it could be painful. But instead of that, maybe we can actually define a controller and then exclude from that, because you can see this cats controller, we have quite a few of them. So defining one by one is painful, of course. But I think we can actually use the exclude method. So let's take a look. So I'm going to just duplicate this one. And the way I'm going to do is dot exclude, you can see. And then I can actually define something like this way. Save it. And you can see that the logger middleware is applicable for the controller, cats controller. So every routes on the cats controller, excluding this one. So we are not performing anything for the cats, or like performing this middleware, logger middleware for the cats, like /cats get method and /cats post method, and also anything that matches this kind of combinations. That means cats / is also like part of it, because this portion is optional. Okay, so this is a great way to kind of like exclude, and I think this is using like path to regex p package, so probably you can take a look and maybe like customize or configure further. But I think this is all the things that we need right now. Let's take a look into the functional middleware. You can see that our logger middleware right now, so if I go inside the logger middleware, you can see that our logger middleware is pretty simple. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't even inject anything. We injected the user service before just to see the capabilities, but we are not using the user service in any way. So this is like a really simple middleware. So if that is the case, then what we can do, we can actually make this middleware a functional approach. So what you can do, we can export function, let's say logger, and it would take like this same request and response and next. So you can see that it takes the same arguments as this use method, and then we can perform pretty much anything that we actually did right here. And of course, do not forget to call next. So this would proceed to the next step. And now what you can do, we can actually comment out all of these. So now you can see that my logger middleware is really simple. It's functional approach. And of course it wouldn't work. You can see right here, has no exported because we have the logger. So what I can do, logger as logger middleware. So this logger is exporting this function, and I rename that as logger middleware, and you can see that it still works. Just make sure there is no issue. I think found one error watching for file inside the logger middleware. I think, let me rerun. Module logger has no export. Remember logger middleware from logger middleware. Oh yeah, so this you can see that this is like the spec file. So I think I can actually, let me just duplicate that and then do this. Okay, so I believe, okay, so on the app module, import as from logger middleware. Okay, you can see that there is no error. Sorry about that, I actually forgot to save. So make sure that you saved everything. Okay, so if I go back to the Insomnia and hit send, you can see that everything is working as expected, but of course I am excluding everything. So let me just comment that out and kind of like use this one. Okay, now if I get all the cats, and you can see that my middleware is working as expected. Finally, I think there is another way to register a middleware. So you can see that the global way. So what we can do on the main.ts, we can actually use that middleware something like this way. Okay, so let's get back to here. So on app module, just make sure that I'm not using it. So it was something like this way, right? Export class app module. It was something like this, right? And if I do that, you can see that there is no middleware. And if I go back to my Insomnia, hit send on the cats, and you can see that there is no middleware to run. But instead of actually applying the middleware like this way on the app module, we can do that on global. Why this is useful? This is useful because you can see that on the app module we are registering, but let's say on the users module we're using a middleware, and the cats module we are using the same middleware. So you can see that if we have 10 modules, we have to do something like this in 10 times. But probably you would register that on the app module. But sometimes it's okay to do that on the global level. So right here you can see that app.use, and we use the logger, NestJS logger. So this logger middleware, and you can see that the middleware, there is no error. So let's just hit send, get back to here, and you can see that my middleware just ran. So it's also working as expected, but there's some gap here. There's some limitations using this way. That's because you can see that the app, this is actually a global kind of bootstrap way, and in this phase we do not have a way to inject the dependency. So that means the dependency injection wouldn't work in this case. I think we can actually test. For example, let's say inside the logger middleware, not a functional way, what we can do, we can actually, you know what, this is fine. We can uncomment this one, and you can see that we have this logger middleware. And if I go back here, logger middleware, and I'm going to use that. So this is still fine. Okay, so this is still fine. So this is still works. Just to make sure. Okay, so there's some issues. Probably I do have to save it. So you can see that there's an issue, and the issue is class construct logger middleware cannot be invoked without new. Okay, so that makes sense. Sorry about that. That's the basic programming. We cannot just use like this way. It has to be new, and then you can see that. So let's save it, and I believe it's still not working. App use requires a middleware function. So you can see that I cannot use this way. It requires a function. So that's exactly what it meant. We cannot use dependency injection this way, or kind of like this class-based way. I thought I could, but seems like I cannot. So it's saying we cannot. So yeah, I think we have to use the kind of like functional approach. Yeah, now it works. So I think we have to use the functional approach for this one. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and see you on my next which would be day 4, and there we would learn about exception filters, pipes, and probably guards. So let's see if we can wrap these 3 parts in one day. That would be great. See you later.